Right, well, let's see what I've been up to these last couple of weeks. A bit of mixture. I've been up here, a bit in the garden, starting to plan out a few things for holidays, but I've mainly been focusing on getting the goods shed done and also just starting to create a bit of a hillside over here. So I think I mentioned in my last video about the next big project will probably when I get back off my holidays late September. And as I've thought about it, what I really would like to do is get those coaches out of the way onto a fiddle yard underneath or some coach siding yards. And that means I can work on that area then. So I think what I will be looking at is doing the Helix under here. And as I think I probably mentioned previously, I've been looking at different Helix, but really unsure. Now it just happens, there's a chap who's been following my progress, and he always takes the time to give me some ideas and comments. And it turns out he's made his own Helix from a sheet of 8x4 ply, so it's one continuous loop. And even more coincidentally, lives very close to me, probably only 20-25 minutes away, and he very kindly offered that I could go over and have a look just to see if it's something that's within my capabilities. So I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning him, but I am going to arrange that as soon as I'm back off holiday to pop over and have a look, just see how he's gone about it and whether it's something I can replicate here. It will just be nice to get all those coaches back on track somewhere out of the way. And as I say, I can start to think about what I'm going to do with that area over there. Just starting to do a little bit of scenic work around this wall and up this edge towards the fence. Got some small bushes in down the line side of it. I've also just put together the basic carcass of this engine shed. It fits all right. I'm probably just going to leave it like that for a couple of days, keep looking at it, think if it's the right thing to put in there, but I don't think it's too overpowering. Obviously it looks a bit odd because it's in its bare grey colour state. Just got to work out what colours to use to get like an Asia red brick colour on there. Just trying to tidy up this edge as well. I've put a piece of timber in there which sort of extends this out slightly and brings it flush with ease, so I might do that down the rest of the way as well. Just paint it black. Things do look better black. I might even spend some time just painting all the support legs black at some point, but the weather's glorious at the minute, so I don't really want to be stuck up here painting when I could find something to do in the garden. So it's been stood there a couple of days and I think I am going to go with it. So I've just started attempting to paint up the shell. So I give it a coat of grey primer and I've just gone over that with a Humbrol rust colour, just as a base. Colour's not too bad, I just need to work out how to get some tones on there and a bit of weathering. I'm winging it really because I've not really painted brickwork up from scratch. But I don't think that colour looks too bad as a base, so I can get the rest of it done now and just change a little bit at the end where I've got the buffer stop and that to create a bit more space. I think there's a little hut that goes on the back of it as well, but once I've got it in the position I need, I can then just finish off this area. So that's the colour close up. It was matte 113. So it does come with, if they show up on there, 3 like little wall lights. One goes on the side there, one goes above the main entrance, and then one goes at the back where this little hook goes. So I'm thinking of swapping those out for those ones that I bought. They should just fit in there quite nicely. Whether I need all 3, I'm not so sure yet. Just depends how well I can disguise the wires on the inside. Well, I've still been struggling to get a nice decent finish effect on this little engine shed. I've tried a couple of different things but I really haven't liked. So I've been cleaning it with IPA, then putting a base coat on again. I've got the position though, so I can do the scenics around it, but I'm leaving it for now because I'm getting right frustrated. I've watched a few videos, but the techniques they've used just don't seem to work for me. I'm not an expert when it comes to painting plastic models, but I will persevere. So what I've been doing in the meantime, I've just looking at a hillside or something for this area over here. So what I've done is, if I just come out a bit, I've cut a piece of insulation board. I've got loads of this. I ordered way too much when we built a summer house bar in the garden. So I've been able to cut a full 8-foot length, and I've just propped it up there in front of where the back seam will go. And my plan is I'm going to just stand back and try and sketch the outline shape of a hillside into that. Obviously it'll rise towards the middle and it'll come down at that end to where the road is. And I'm going to use that as the back, you know, as the overall outline shape. And I think then I'm going to attach chicken wire on that and bring it down and make a structure that way. Obviously that's far too high. But I just wanted a piece big enough so that I could start shaping some hillside shape onto it. So I think I'm going to play around with that for a while, just as a bit of a break, see how I get on. The piece I've cut off is roughly 30 centimetres high, and I know the back seam, to continue it from that corner where the tunnel is 25. So obviously this needs to be cut down because it wants to be below the back seam, just so you can see the top of that. So I'm probably thinking maybe something like, it'll get as high as maybe 15, 20 centimetres. So at least it gives me a starting point now, and I can just rough out what shape I think would look reasonable. In fact, the more I look at it, you can probably see that there's a grid pattern on this board, and the 10 centimetres, those squares, so you can see the lines going across. That's 10, that's 20, then obviously roughly 30. So I'm thinking the more I look at it, probably 10 centimetres is going to be high enough, because if not it's going to look really steep and I want it to be kind of gentle. So I'm probably going to cut that right down to roughly just 10 centimetres and build it off that. That's 10 centimetres now. And obviously there'll be some shape to it. It'll go down low at that end, and also again towards the little road crossing over there. But I think that looks far more in keeping. It'll give the slope roughly like a 30-degree angle from the base where the track is up to the top there. So I think that's a bit more in keeping. So I'm going to somehow think of a way to fasten that in place and then build the chicken wire off it. So my plan was to make this plumb, so obviously when the back seam goes on there's no ugly gap. So I fastened some bracing behind it, wood, with some clamps, and this is pushed against. And I was going to use these, I've got these old offcuts of I think it's loft boards, and I was going to use those, fasten them to the top and then push this against it to get it square. The only concern is this is quite heavy, and I don't want any unnecessary weight which may in turn distort the incline at some point. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut some little strips of the insulation board. It's much lighter, and just maybe hot glue that in place and then glue this onto it. And obviously it'll stiffen up when I get the chicken wire on. I think it might just be a bit safer than using this real heavy chipboard. So I've roughed out a shape. I don't have a clue what it's going to look like, but I'm thinking when I get some chicken wire draped from the back, I'll fasten it into the back and then drape it down in the front, just to create some hills and hopefully a gentle enough slope. We'll see if it works. Right, well the first step with the chicken wire, I just cut it into 30 centimetre strips along, and I left the pointy edge, and I've bent the edge 90 degrees over and just sunk it into this insulation board. Then it's just draped down. So what I think I'm going to do is I've got a heavy duty stapler. I'm going to staple the bottoms and then trim it and then start to shape it. So it's most of the way along there. You can start to see some little dips and valleys and mounds. So I'm hoping once I get the bottom fastened, I'll then shape it and probably put some wedges underneath in certain places to hold it while I start to get a covering on there. Right, next step, I've cut roughly to shape to get some contours. I've used my heavy duty staple gun across the front, and then I've used the hot glue gun. Two reasons, obviously to hold the front in place, but it just covers up any sharp edges there. I mean, it'll all be covered anyway with paper mache and plaster cloth. And I've also just put some dabs of hot glue on the top. It did slightly melt this, but then it's bonded it all into place. So the main structure's there. It comes down at this end. I daren't really go past this point at the minute because I'm sure this will have to come off so I can work on the helix coming out of there. So I could always marry it up and put it on at a later date. Oops, wrong way there. Shouldn't be too problem, but obviously this hillside as well here is going to have to come out, so I'll use some chicken wire just to try and get it all blended in, but that'll be after the underneath helix is done. So I think what I'm going to do now, just to see what the shape does look like, is I'm going to get some paper mache on first. I'm going to use some old out-of-date PVA, mix it up with water and just slap a load of paper on there, see how we get on. So I've got a nice little stash of the old Amazon packaging paper. I'll use that. Don't really buy newspapers anymore, but this seems to do it just as well. So I'll get it all ripped up into little pieces and start slapping it on there. So with its first coat of paper mache, probably 3 layers I've got on there. I'm hoping with the warm weather that will dry overnight. The chicken wire I've got, it's something I had from when the kids were little, and it's quite big gauge, so there's big big gaps, so you can see the paper mache has followed that, so there's lots of like honeycomb shapes. So once that has dried, I have get the plaster cloth cut up and get that on there, and with some decent weather should get it dried by the weekend, I'm hoped. But you can see the contours, kind of the shape. I've tried to recess a little bit directly in front of me for kind of where the signal box is going to go. So as I say, next step, get it dried and then get the plaster bandage on. The paper mache dried pretty quick overnight, so I've just spent some time today putting some plaster bandage over there. Pretty much 3 coats everywhere, along as far as I dare go for now. And I've just spent some time just carefully putting some filler in there and creating a level base where I want the signal box to sit. So I'm hoping this is going to dry overnight, get a coat of paint on it, then I shall get the real effect of what it looks like, and if there's any sort of fettling or tweaking I need to do with some of the shape to it. Spending a bit of time colouring and weathering this small engine shed. It is darker than I originally wanted, but the lighter I was trying to make it, I was just losing the effect. So it's quite a dark, mucky, browny colour. Obviously some aged white window frames in there. I've got a light above the door, and I've just got the back and this little hut to sort out. And then it's ready to come over to the area over there. So it's already been marked out. While it was just its carcass, I ballasted inside and then lifted it, so that's all dried. So there'll just be some touching up to the walls around the entrance now once it's in place. Just I'm trying to finalise this little engine shed. I don't know if you can see, but this side is really bowed, and I know it says on the old instructions you get, which are very, very dated, as you can see. It says that the cambo when they've been stored, and it says to warm them up and soak them in warm water, then try and gently manipulate them, which hasn't worked. I don't know if you can see the extent of that bow. It's quite substantial. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm thinking of fixing this inside at a certain height, and it can just be like a built-in workbench all the way along, and I'll put some accessories and that on it, but I'm hoping that'll just stiffen it and bring this out level, because from the edge to the centre there must be about a 3mm gap there. So I'm hoping that might just help stiffen it and straighten it up. The light above the front door works. There is a light that goes on the side over there, and then this little shed on the back. See, there's a hole there for a light that sits there. To be honest, I don't think I'm going to bother with the other two lights. I might just put the dummy ones in that come with it, because I think 3 on this one little shed's probably going to be a little bit overpowering. Right, it's all dry, which is pleasing. Platform's roughed out. Well, the platform, sorry, just the base for roughly where this is going to sit. So I think I can work with that. Get the wires put through. The steps will be somewhere there. So I think I'll get this all painted now. Give it a coat of the old brown cheap acrylic. I'll probably paint this area grey, because I might just kind of do some gravel, something around that area. So let's see what it looks like with a bit of paint on it. That's it with the first coat of just cheap brown acrylic. So I'll let that dry. I'll just work out then where the road or the dirt track, whatever it's going to be, is going to come up here. I'm kind of thinking I'll fence off around here, and then probably just to somewhere maybe there and bring it across. Because it's not going to be a public road, it's just a track for access to the signal box. So yeah, we'll let that dry, and then I will see maybe over the next few days how far I can get. We're doing a bit of landscaping on here. Right, so we're pretty much there. That's the little engine shed in place. The wires are through. There's just a small hut to put on the back and the doors to put on the front, and then a bit of blending in of the scenery around it, but I think we're there with that one. I've got one more yard light which I'm not sure where to put yet, so I may look at doing that before I go away and just tidying up the scenery around it. But for a small little good shed, it took a few days to build that.